The way you would do that, let's say I'm going to highlight this, I'm going to highlight this, I'm going to come back to that component. Excuse me, get it, there we go. And once I have that component by itself, I'm going to hit M or use my move tool again. Click on this, hit Control to get my duplicate, pull a duplicate out, and now what I can take on this particular duplicate is I can go back in and use my measurement tool and I can lay out all my measurements so that when I go to cut my work, I know exactly what I'm cutting and where the shapes are. So I can even do this here. Come back to here, pull that up. I know that that's a 3-inch item. You know, I can do the same thing here. So I get the measurement for the gap based on my wood thickness. So that I can take and lay out my entire sections. I can go through and do every piece. If you really wanted to go to the extent, you could even take this. And what I'm going to do at this point, since I have that highlighted, I'm going to go up to File, Edit, Cut. I'm going to click so nothing is highlighted. Nope, I lost my measurements. Let's paste it back in. That was a good thing that happened. Paste in place because I didn't highlight it and make that a new component. Or the other thing I can do is just add it to the component. I'll show you what I'll do there. I'll click on each one. Click, highlight the measurement. Okay, see how that's blue? Hit the Shift key and click on each one of my measurements that I've created. And by clicking on the number, I get it highlighted. Okay, I can see that those are all highlighted. And then what I'm going to do is go up to Edit, and I'm going to cut them. Then if I come back and click this and highlight just that segment, right click and hit Edit Component. Now I go back to Edit, Paste in Place. Alright, and you can see what happened is now that has been placed on all of those elements and is part of them. So I'm going to click on this again. I'm going to make it unique. I could have done that before and then they wouldn't have showed up here as the measurements, whichever way you want to do it. Okay, so I've got it highlighted, Edit, Cut, and then making sure nothing else is highlighted, I'm going to go Edit, Paste in Place, and then I can take my Rotate tool, alright, click on it, make sure that in this case what I want is the green axis, hold the Shift key so I don't lose it, come down to the very bottom corner, click, go straight up, click, lay this panel down on its side, and now because I know my measurements, for instance, this is such a measurement here. What was I said? It was 23 inches, which means at 23 inches, if I were working with a sheet of plywood, I could take, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Edit, Copy, then Edit, Just Paste. I can bring the new one down in place. And I can place it down here to begin to work out my pattern that I would cut it out of my sheet of plywood. Now, if you want to be very precise, remember I wouldn't butt them right straight together because the saw cut's going to take out 1/8 of an inch. So now I have my 1/8 of an inch for my saw cut. And this was 3 feet. So if I hold Shift and click on both of these, use my Move tool and Control to duplicate, move this up here, and again I can come back and move it so that I get my saw cut inch. So you can even start to plan your layout. Of course, you know what the total thickness is supposed to be, how much is left over, what strip I might get out of a 4x8 sheet of plywood, or do I need more? In fact, one 4x8 sheet's not going to do it to give our 5 sections, so you can even lay out, if you wanted to, you could take and draw the diagram of a sheet of plywood and plan it. So one of the advantages for, again, using 3D computer design and SketchUp is you can start with a box that represents the shape that your cabinet has to fit in, so you know your outside limits. You can start to work on the various components that make up your cabinet. You can then see how they fit together, whether or not there will be any interference problems. And if you want to take it a step further, you can even then go to lay out your pieces to plan how you're going to cut your materials out to save the most, make the most efficient use of your materials with the smallest amount of waste. And all that can be planned and laid out using SketchUp. So I hope you enjoyed this section on designing cabinets. And again, this was a cabinet that I've actually been making for my own kitchen, but the principles would apply to any cabinet that you would be making for your Airstream. The only thing that I would suggest would be different. This cabinet's going to be a pretty heavy cabinet because I was designing it for a home. For an Airstream, you would probably want to use much thinner, lighter materials to cut the weight down as much as possible. So that's the end of this lesson of drawing cabinets.